And even the private sector that we have at the moment is dependent, heavily dependent, on the public spending. So we need the section of local industry that is genuinely wealth creating and wealth generating to be grown from the tiny space it's in at the moment to being an all-embracing, functional economy that gives people opportunity. You might ask how many of our companies pay the full rate of corporation tax? How many of them take the bulk of their revenue from exports? In fact, I'm told by those who study these things in detail that our private sector is just about the same size as East Germany's was before the wall came down. Change, I believe, will only come about by political action, by planned strategic intervention and strategic investment. And that's what we want to talk about. That change can only start if we have the ambition. And for me, ambition is the key. Nothing will happen if we don't have the dream, don't have the ambition to do better, to create a prosperity process that will deliver for all our people. And that's exactly what the SDLP want to put on the table in this election. The choice is clear. We can continue on the road that we're on of dependency and cuts in every direction and watch things die a death by 1,000 cuts. Or we can have the ambition to build an economy. Won't happen overnight, but we can have the ambition to build an economy that one day that will be sustainable and one day will be able to stand on its own feet and generate the tax revenues that we need to pay for the social affairs that we need and the social development that we need, the education and the welfare and the health service we need. Instead of an economy that's currently at least 2/3 public and only 1/3 private. Over time, we would seek to steadily reverse that ratio and achieve the average European mix that we see in the Irish Republic and elsewhere. It would require social and economic engineering which is far beyond the capabilities or the resources of our current devolved administration. In fact, as far as I can perceive, it will only happen if we can persuade the two governments and indeed the international community to take up the peace process model once again and turn the peace process or the political process into a prosperity process. But this time we have to seek a broad consensus for straightening out the economy to make it stand on its own feet. We want the peace process, again I repeat, to be followed up and indeed brought to completion by a prosperity process. What we're looking for is a new deal for the North, and to some extent we're offering one by engaging and by initiating this debate. Our two governments, Irish and British, have now realised that there's no done deal here and that our peace process, our peace that we've established, has shallow roots. According to the Treasury, the net subsidy is running at 10 billion a year, and David Cameron knows, or anybody else that might become Prime Minister, that over the next generation the Treasury could pump anything up to 200 billion in here without any hope of rebalancing or improvement. We want a strategic plan that ensures that there is rebalancing and improvement and a long-term strategy for sustainability. We would seek the help and the support of the Irish Government to negotiate a new economic accord for upfront investment as part of a plan to gradually grow a real private sector. It's an enormous task, and we can see very clearly that the position we're in at the moment, with the Chancellor and the Treasury able to cut at will always lead us to the politics of austerity and powerlessness. But we have a roadmap, and we firmly believe that our direction of travel must be towards sustainable prosperity, created by our own hand and our own actions. We firmly believe that we must make Northern Ireland work and that we must generate that economic prosperity for the hard-working families out there, the doors that we're knocking day and daily at the moment. The message coming back is very clear. People want opportunities for themselves and their children. They don't want their children to have to emigrate. if we're to achieve our goal of our reconciled people living in a united and prosperous new Ireland, an economic sustainability is essential. But even without a blueprint, we can point to some areas of potential investment. We have a potential workforce of something like 1.3 million. About 2/3 of the population are considered available for work. It's a shock to me, and will be a shock to you, to realise that only 60,000 out of 1.3 million hold an apprentice qualification. We don't have apprenticeships that are so badly needed to service our whole industrial development. The other thing that's even more frightening is that almost 500,000 people out of that 1.3, almost 40% of them, in fact 417,000, have no vocational qualifications whatsoever and are therefore deemed as unskilled. How could we possibly prosper while that remains the case? We need a massive programme of workplace training, and indeed, to my mind, we need a technological university to lead the way. There are models to be found no further away than Dundalk for this technical university style development. For this party, ambition to do better and to be sustainable is vital and is as important as the detail. We believe that unless there's the ambition there to do better, we'll never hit the road. It's not apparent to me, and hasn't been apparent, that other parties share that ambition, that hunger that exists in the SDLP to see a sustainable economy here. As a political party, it's our job to point the way and roll out the roadmap, taking on the task of making our whole economy a wealth-producing machine. Yes, that's complex, and it doesn't reduce to a handy soundbite here or at any other time in the next 3 weeks. But neither did power sharing 30 years ago. Power sharing took a generation and it was worth it. It's now the time to look forward, to look to the future rather than back. Our deficient economy really is the elephant in the room at every political meeting, at every political event, and the key to all other policy areas. We need to fix it so that it will generate the tax revenues to fix our society and create the social development that is so badly needed. Nowhere is it written that Northern Ireland must be dependent until the end of time, or that our young people must emigrate in their thousands. A century ago, our industry led the world. Now in the 21st century, as all of Europe takes up the challenge of reindustrialisation, we must face up to that as well. We must have ambition for our children. Our manifesto sets out how we envisage that New Deal lifting Northern Ireland into a new era of prosperity. We have set out our priority areas in jobs and in the economy. We have set out to see a shared and safe community and creating a new North that works as a region and will work as part of a new Ireland and stays within the European Union. On May the 7th, we're offering people a simple choice: prosperity over austerity. If you trust us with your votes, we will work to deliver the new type of politics which our communities are crying out for. I repeat, there is a better way, a much better way, the SDLP way, and we want to take that road. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. There will be individual questions for the press after this, but I'd just like to invite a couple of questions from them before Alasdair leaves the stage. Mark, would you like to head us off?
Okay. Alasdair, your sort of equivocal comments, I think it was about Ed Miliband as, your equivocal comments in an interview a couple of weeks back about Ed Miliband as a potential Prime Minister has led your opponents to say that you haven't closed down the option of still potentially working with the Tories. Is that the case, or you know, is there still an option of you working with the Conservatives in the event of a hung Parliament, or are you committed to working with a Labour-led government?
Sorry, your question is, would we work with the Tories?
Yes.
No. Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
The Tory government is the direct opposite of all I have talked about here this morning, from Mark's stuff to Margaret's stuff to my stuff, right? So the Tories are opposed to all that we stand for. Sorry, the Tory agenda is opposed to the agenda that Mark and Margaret and I have outlined to you here this morning. Simple. So I don't see any, we couldn't work with them.
Ken, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah. Do you actually see yourself in the mix after this election? Are you prepared to do a deal with Labour and the SDLP if necessary?
We are there to represent the people of our constituencies and the wider Northern Ireland. Indeed, Mark and Margaret and I have to double up at times and represent constituencies where the MPs don't attend. But we are there to represent Northern Ireland to the best of our ability. We have very clear views. We have outlined them here this morning, and that will be our agenda. Yes, we will certainly talk to those that may form a government, and we will pursue that. Yes, we have instincts that sometimes would tilt towards Labour, but by and large, Mark has outlined very clearly on a number of occasions where Labour tilted towards severe cuts and austerity that damaged us here. We voted differently. So the point is this: we will take our own counsel when the results come in, and we will act in the best interests of this region.